Kelvin Harrison, welcome to An Actor Despairs. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh man, such a big fan of yours. I discovered you, like a lot of people, and all your films. And I last year at the Luce Tribeca premiere, which was a little crazy afterwards with the Q&A. That poor,
Oh
I,
yeah.
oh man, I felt so bad for you guys. I just wanted to like shake her, but that's my own statement, not yours.
I wanted to shake her too. I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah,
man.
man, it was supposed to be a celebration. Like she was politicizing like such a beautiful film, and you were so amazing in that, man. Like what you did in that role, I was just like, this guy is iconic. And then I went back in your film career, man, and everything you did working with Nate Parker, and just like you're on to something. And then the high note, man, I'm so excited for you, and you got a great voice too, man. Like you're amazing all across
Thanks,
the
man. I
board.
appreciate
So,
it. I appreciate
oh,
it.
dude, I got so much respect and appreciation. But let's start at the beginning. You grew up in New Orleans?
Yes, I grew up in New Orleans. My parents are musicians. My dad's a classically trained saxophonist, and my mom's a jazz vocalist. So music was really heavy in our home. And I started, I went to NOCA, New Orleans Creative Arts School, and I studied jazz instrumental and jazz piano, and then
Wow.
trumpet. And then I played keyboard in the church, and that was every day for a very long
Wow.
time.
And so were you doing the like gospel choir as well?
Yeah, I would be the keyboardist for the choir. So my mom was the director, the choir director, and my dad was, he would play the saxophone on the side, and I would sometimes do a little oohs and ahs.
Oh, nice. It showed in the movie.
That'd be
That's
about
great.
it.
So, dude, I'm so curious. What was it like growing up in New Orleans? It's such a unique city in America. Like, and I feel like the arts are really there in a lot of different ways. How did it manifest for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there's so much culture in New Orleans, and it's so rich. You can walk down after Katrina. It was interesting because I think I gained the most out of New Orleans. Granted, I was at the age where I could actually see things better, and I would pay attention more. I was 12 when it happened.
Oh, so that's definitely the
Um,
age where you can remember everything.
oh yeah,
Wow.
and I remember going to this little red schoolhouse smack in the middle of the French Quarter. So you would pass Cafe Du Monde, and you would go down Decatur, and then you end up at the little red school. And so you would see artists, you see the blue dog, the infamous, the famous blue dog. You would see crawfish shops, and you would hear the brass bands playing down the street. There would be parades happening. It was just, you were constantly immersed in just artistry.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of take it in. I remember, I had no choice.
Yeah. Well, I'm so curious to ask because I usually think it goes one of two ways. Like you go into the arts or you don't. Being that your parents were artists, did you have that imperative very young, or did that happen later on?
I think it was very young. I mean, I think, for a long time, I thought I was going to do something practical, that made sense. Like I was going to go to law school. I was going to be a doctor, something that was easier to me in my mind rather than trying to be an artist, because my parents kept demonstrating to me how difficult it was.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, my dad was like, well, you're going to play an instrument. So I started off playing violin before Katrina, and
Oh,
that
nice.
was what I did. And I was really good at it. I got selected to be in this group of like, I guess 100 kids to play it in New York, called World on a String. And I was like the first chair of,
Wow. Was
out
that
of
like
like
Radio
nine,
City or something?
something like that.
Yeah.
And anyway, that was really cool. And then, after that, I tried the guitar. I was not good at it, so I stopped. And then after that, that's when I had to kind of decide to play trumpet or piano, because my dad was like, "You're not going to go to
Did
school
you
with me
did you ever
and
do the
not play."
band thing?
Yeah, I was in band. Because my dad was a teacher at that point too.
Oh, wow.
So after Katrina, he was after Katrina, I went to his school, and I was in his band, and I did concert band, I did big band, I did jazz band, I did brass band, I did marching band. And then after, when I went to high school, I went to my high school band, and I did those things, and then I joined the choir in high school, which was different.
That's
But yeah.
beautiful. And in high school, did something happen with acting? Like where did that road start to take form?
Um, it was I was always curious about trying, and I remember I remember I wanted to know if I could do it because all my friends were doing it at a certain point. And so I remember there was a play, they were doing Midsummer Night's Dream, and there was the role of Puck.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, my buddy, I had auditioned. I was terrible. I didn't get the part. My buddy got the part. And I was like, if you drop out, um, I'll do something for you, whatever it is. I was like, in exchange, I was like,
Oh
just let me do
wow.
it. Like, if you're, but it was kind of messed up because I was like, if you're really my friend, you'll let me do it because I really want it.
Yeah. What a
And so
homie.
yeah, he did it, and I got to do it. And that was like my first taste of it. And once again, I was bad in the play. And then the next time,
What a heavy thing to tackle, though. Iambic as your first thing. That's, man, no wonder you're so good.
I had no clue what I was talking about. I was just like saying words, and I was
Yeah.
just like, this is so bad. But
Did
yeah,
you have a good teacher?
No, because I wasn't in an acting class at the
Wow.
school. It was just like yeah. Not many kids wanted to do that play, and I think
I can understand why.
yeah. So yeah.
And then at what point did the musical shift to acting happen?
That was after high school when one of my buddies went to this audition for Ender's Game, and there were feature extra roles that they were trying to fill, and they
Yeah,
were like,
what
some of the
wasn't New
kids might get.
Orleans doing a lot of production at that time?
Yes.
Like post-Katrina,
Yes.
like Benjamin Button, and
Yes.
I think like maybe one of the
21 Jump Street,
Yeah, everything
all
was
those
shooting.
movies, everyone was there.
Do you remember
Focus
that?
was there. Oh yeah, I remember because there would be trailers everywhere, and there would be like,
Wow.
all these stars' names or code names, and
Oh yeah, totally.
and you would see all these like people on walkies, and like, at the time I didn't know what that was. I was like, this is like Secret Service,
Yeah, I know. So pretentious.
But, yeah, it's so pretentious, but it was kind of cool, and especially in our city because we were just like, this never happens here. Like, movie stars are here, they exist.
Yeah.
It's not just like on my TV, but Ender's Game started shooting there, and my buddy was like, well, I'm gonna go audition for this movie, and I was like, oh, I love the book, and he was like, well, come with me, and I was like, okay, cool. And I went, and all the kids, there were like hundreds of us, and then we all had to read these sides, and based on that, you got called back. So we got called back like the next day, and then it would be like the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and then eventually it came down to like 30 of us, and then some kids got to come in, and 4 of us got to go and read for this one line. We would get the upgrades, so that was like the golden ticket, and so it was me, and it was like 3 other kids that were like working actors because some of them were on Treme, and some of these other shows.
Love David Simon.
Yeah. And I was like nervous, and I went in, and then by the time we got to the set, they were like, who got the part? And I was like, you got the part. They want you to do it. And I was like, what? There's this one line, nightmares launch, you keep them to himself.
Sometimes that one line, though, can be so much harder than a monologue. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. 100%. But that was it. And so next thing I was on that set for like 4 months, and I ended up being also one of the kids as double and stand-in. They made good use out of me if they had me.
Yeah.
And I got to meet, I met Sir Ben Kingsley at a urinal. And then I was running lines.
Did you go for the handshake or did you not?
I was just like, and I had just watched Gandhi.
No way.
So I was just like, it was a very spiritual experience for me.
Wow, that's so cool, man. And I know, when you're not like the lead on a film set, they can be sometimes not the most positive environment. Were they welcoming? Was that fun for you? Because obviously you were on it for so long. Like, did you feel the bug, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think what was so cool about that particular set was that, we also had to do boot camp together, all the kids. And so we're looking at a group of kids that at the top of their game. If you wanted to be a child actor, this was the group. It was Haley Steinfeld, right off her True Grit nomination.
Wow.
Abigail Breslin, Little Miss Sunshine. Asa Butterfield, right off of Hugo. You're just looking, Moises Iris, and he just did Kings of Summer. That was like his first breakout role since Hannah Montana. And it was like, they were very focused, they were very serious,
yeah,
and they were very passionate about what they were doing. And Gavin Hood was the director, and we all had to kind of do this like boot camp for like 3 weeks. So we were running in rain, doing push-ups. There was a lot of bonding going on, But because of that, there was a lot of exchanging of information. And like, if you really want to take this seriously, then maybe look into your local agent, or maybe, look into a class. And then also, you might run into Viola Davis on set. And she was the one that was like, get in the class. That's the first thing you should do. So,
So
I was curious and I asked.
The cast was good to you.
Oh, the cast was, they were so sweet. Everyone was it was just sweet. Yeah, they were good people.
I love that. That's so beautiful, man. And so then, Kelvin, did you do the class and local agent grind?
Oh yeah. I mean, I asked one of the kids that had a local agent, I was like, can you like help me out? And he was kind of like, I don't know. But eventually I got his information and I submitted. And then after that, I read for them and auditioned. They were like, okay, you have something going, but I would recommend you take this class.
Yeah.
So I got in with this teacher named Daniel DuPont in New Orleans, and I did that for, I guess, 2 years. And that's how I kind of learned my foundation. And he studied under Larry Moss. So
Larry's great.
Yeah, it was great. And and so I think that was like that was how I started developing my vocabulary.
Got it. And while you were in this class, were you auditioning for other New Orleans or Atlanta projects?
They waited a while because they wanted to make sure I was ready, and then took about a year. And so then they started submitting me for the next thing I auditioned for was 12 Years a Slave.
Which
they were doing reshoots, and I was still in college too. I was studying marketing, and they last minute I went in and met Steve, and it was just like an improvisational audition. And 5 minutes later, before I left, they called me and said I got it. And I don't have any lines in that movie, but they cast me as a day player, and that was my first like proper day player.
Academy Award-winning film,
Yeah.
Wow, and a period piece. That must have been so cool to be on a set like that with like Lupita, Fassbender, everyone. Oh yeah. And she was starting. I'm curious then, as you had that credit, talk to me about the LA versus New York decision. Where did that come into play?
Ooh, I mean, that was a few years later. I think I eventually got to a point where I had done Roots, I had done Birth of a Nation, I had done Underground because it was all local, and I I got some traction from a manager, my current manager.
Okay.
And he was looking at the cast list for Birth of a Nation. He was like, "Well, I'm looking for young African American talent," and I was like, "Oh, well, I'm a young African American talent."
So you got that hustle business aspect pretty early. You knew you had to grind the business wise, because I know a lot of that
finesse.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome, man. And I don't want to skip over it. Birth of a Nation, how was that experience?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, Nate Parker was truly at the top of his game in that moment, and just seeing him, he's the one I remember. I went in to the callback, and he said, he told me, he said, think the thought and then say it. And I was just like, he said, that's all. Don't overdo it. It was just, it was truly like he was teaching me. I heard Chiwetel talk about subtlety, and he had kind of talked, but I didn't really understand it just yet. But then seeing Nate be on set and go back and forth behind the camera, on camera, and just make it seem so effortless, and allowing us to relax and not overdo it, not feeling like we had to punch anything, was like, that was a big turning point, I think, in my acting after working with him. But yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, and did you get to go to the Sundance premiere? I heard that first one was insane.
Yeah, I didn't go. I was like, I didn't know how to go.
Yeah,
really
it's so expensive too.
Yeah.
So. That's amazing though. So then you get this manager, and he's in New York?
Yeah, so he's in LA.
Oh, he's in LA. Okay.
He's in LA. He hits me up and he tells me, he's looking for talent with Meat. I then suddenly booked recently this TV show in Puerto Rico, so I was there. And then he signed me. I got an agent in LA the next day. It was Abrams. I was at Abrams Artists.
Great agent.
The first audition they said they were going to get me was for Fences.
for the Sun?
Yeah.
Did you go back to Viola?
But it got me to move, and that was what the thing was. It made me kind of go, wow, there's opportunities there that I, may not have gotten if I was just sitting in the South. So I was like, I should go and move there. And I told my parents one day, we were at Audubon Park, riding bikes, and I was like, I bought a ticket today. They were like, to where? And I was like, LA. And I was like, they were like, wait, what? And I was like, I'm leaving tomorrow. And they were just
Wow.
like, no, you're not. And I was like, I am. And they're like, where are you staying? I was like, with your sister.
That's
They're like,
amazing.
interesting.
Savage. And then
Yeah.
being in the behemoth of the beast in LA, do you feel like that, like, I feel like LA's film school just by living there, you know what I mean? Like, did everything start to change, like auditions, because it's so saturated with actors and it's a city that revolves around one industry. So it's great that you went there with credits because so many actors, they go out there and they get lost in that. So talk to me a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a kind of, auditions were coming in, and I remember I was going in to everyone. I was prepared, but it was mostly like sitcom things. It was like that Bella Thorne show on
Oh, yeah.
Freeform. I forgot what it was called.
I know exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
and then there was Riverdale. There was 13 Reasons Why. It was like every teen show that I could possibly get, or like indies that were teen indies and stuff like that. And I was getting callbacks and testing, and then I booked nothing. So it was just, I lived really far away from the city, so I didn't really get to see much. So I would only have to drive 45 minutes in an Uber to get in, and I kind of ran out of money at a certain point. It was like 3 months in, and I had no more money left, and I hadn't booked anything. And I remember getting one last audition tape, and it was to do this tape for It Comes at Night. And I did it. I packed my suitcases up because I had a flight that day. I taped with managers, clients, and I sent that in. I packed my stuff. I went home. And then I suddenly got this one bit part in Mudbound. So I flew to Budapest.
Yeah.
And then I had a call back for It Comes at Night, and then I got It Comes at Night, and that changed my career.
Wow.
Literally, everything changed after that.
And
So it was a rough summer.
But then in some ways it's good because it gave you that perception of what it's like before fully taking off. And, humility, I think, is such an imperative thing to longevity. And in some
Mm-hmm.
ways, I'm curious, I know at the end of the day, I'm an actor. We all need to make money. But, like, I feel like you've gone from being such a very serious actor that, like, was there a moment where you were, I know we all need to survive, but like that teen thing, are you glad that didn't happen in some ways? Because, you could be like on 20 seasons of some show making a lot of money, but now you're working with some of the best in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm definitely so grateful for it now. I didn't know any better then.
Yeah.
I think I knew what good movies were, but I also knew that, like, it was a dream. Like, I was like, how who gets to do that? And
Yeah.
especially not a young African American kid from New Orleans who was like, I was at 20 at the time when I really started, and I was like, there are no roles for me. So for me to have this trajectory, I'm not going to be Will Smith. I'm not going to be Denzel. I had all these things that I wasn't going to be. I was like, the height of this
The
all is
actor
to be
brain.
on. Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, to work, I was a privilege, and growing up and being in New Orleans and doing, weeklies and day players, I was always just like, I get to act.
Yeah.
That's enough. Like, I'm
It's
grateful
what
for
I
that.
love. Totally.
I get to do what I love.
Yeah.
So,
That's amazing.
but
And then how was that experience filming that, going to being like number one on the call sheet?
yeah, it was insane. I think, I looked at that picture the other day of Trey, our director, took of me, Joel Edgerton, and Carmine Jogo, and the makeup chairs getting our, like, our boils. It was the horror film. and our dark circles on that. It was weird because I'm just like staring at them in disbelief, and I forgot how much I was just like, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah.
But it was exciting. I learned so much, and I started to see how it's truly, they're all craftsmen, each one of them. And I think that's what humanized the celebrity is very different from the artist. And I started to see it. I was like, yes, he's on this carpet and he's in Cannes with his nice,
Yeah.
Chanel, whatever, or Dior suits, and
Playing the fashion politics of it all. Yeah.
But he really is nowhere in this Airbnb, and suddenly I'm chopping wood and making fires with Joel Edgerton, and he's like, yo, you need some socks so you don't want to get, ticks. And he like takes his socks off his feet and puts them on mine and go get some new ones. And I'm just like,
what a bro.
What a nice dude, And we like cooked and laughed, and we shot like these BB guns in the woods and and it was just like, we're just having a good time. And I think it changed my perspective on how to approach the work. what the work is truly about,
Yeah.
and how important relationship is when developing a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we were speaking off air. I hope he doesn't mind, but we both work with the same acting coach, Ted Silbersky, and I know he's like he's very intense in the best sense possible, and he doesn't take just about anyone on unless they're very so like he knew you were a true talent. Talk to me about how that relationship happened because he's so amazing.
He's incredible. He's incredible. He's so smart, and he knows everything.
He really does.
He really knows so much.
He's a soothsayer, man. Going back to New Orleans, you know what I mean?
Yes, yes. My roommate in LA at the time was working with Ted. He had just Stone Street, I think. Or
you lived with Danny, right?
Danny, yes. You know Danny Ramirez.
Yeah. I did Stone Street.
Okay, sick. So
yeah.
Danny was telling me about that, and he was like, okay, you should work, he was working with his coach, and I was like, he was telling me some of the feedback he was getting and some of the notes, and I was like, those are good notes. I was like, I want those notes. And so he introduced me to Ted right before I was about to start Luce.
Yeah.
And so I came to Ted, and I was like, hi, I have this script, and he was like, okay, let's see it. And he read it and he was like, oh boy. He's like, you got a lot to do here. He's like, I can't wait to get started.
Oh God, I love Ted.
But he was the perfect person to like coach me through that movie. I mean,
well, and dude, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, but what you did with that character was some of the finest acting I have ever seen. I remember watching it at the Tribeca film. And you know how it is when you're a young actor and like, I'm still in that kind of callback audition grind. You see a newcomer and you're like, oh man. And then I was just like, wow, what you did, like it's not an easy character to play by any means. There's so many dimensions to him and you rose to the occasion, man. And that's like, I don't want to harp on it, but that's why I was so bummed about the talk. I was like, you deserve nothing but praise, man. Like you crushed it. And you got up with two of the biggest actors in the world. Can you break that down? Like you get the script, and what was the audition process like? Or was that an offer?
Oh, no. It was intense. I remember I got the script maybe a year before, and I read it, and I was just like, it was a page turner. I mean, the dialogue, it's a play.
Yeah, it was a play first.
It played first.
Yeah.
And I just think that I just love plays. Some of my favorite movies are plays, and I just think that I was really excited about the part. I went in, I met Julius, but I kind of played it differently. I was like, in order to get this part, you kind of have to be as smart as the kid. And I'm not, but I do know that I need to hold my cards close. That's what I took away from reading the script. And so my meeting with Julius, the director, I didn't say anything. I only asked questions.
Julius wrote the play, right?
J.C. Lee wrote the play. Julius and J.C. wrote the screenplay.
Got it. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I only ask questions. I was like, well, what do you think about the character? Well, what do you think about this thing? And why do you think that happened? Yeah. And he's looking at me. He's like, and what do you think? I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So he was like, this kid's an idiot. And I was like, no, but you just told me everything you wanted to see in this audition. So now I'll go tape it.
Self-tape, bro.
Self-tape, ready-made. So I did the self-tape.
With Ted?
Not yet. I hadn't met Ted yet.
Okay.
I did the self-tape, and I had to do another one, and then I had to do another scene, and then I had to do another scene, and then I had to do all the speeches in the movie. Then I had to go into the room, and it was like an hour-long audition.
Wow.
I literally ended up crying for like 20 minutes of it because I thought I was like going to lose the job. Little did I know, he had already decided that I had the job before I walked in.
Of course.
Because Octavia Spencer, I saw at the Sundance Labs, and she was like, I can't wait to work with you. And I was just like, huh? Wow. So I think that was that. And then I came to Ted with the script, and that's when he really whipped me into shape because he was like, you just have to you got to be on top of it. He really was strict about pacing, about restraint, about command, just being very clear, stating things as facts, as statements with that character, but also keeping this persona of charm and all balancing these other elements like the Obama side and the Will Smith storytelling element and just and the physicality we talked a lot about. There were just so many things that he touched on that I just never would have thought about, but it was a process. And Naomi and Tim were just a gift.
Oh, some of the finest actors ever. And I'm curious, because like we live in hypersensitive times now, and sometimes I think great writing is just great writing, and it's not trying to like intentionally provoke and ask all these things, but just because of the time it came out, I think people started asking all these things. Like when you guys were filming it, I can't imagine that was like, oh, well, what's the political thing? You know what I mean? And that like, you can't play that, and that's what bummed me out about like, especially that girl, man. I'm gonna murder her.
She's intense.
Yeah, man. But how was filming with them? Because like I feel like when you get to work with good actors, it elevates your acting. But when you work with greats, you just gotta be great because you don't want to let them down.
Everyone always asks me like, "Were you nervous?" Sure, I was nervous, but I'm nervous with any project. But the thing about it is, it's like, do you have time when you're working with Naomi Watts, Tim Roth, and Octavia Spencer to exercise your fears about your insecurities as an actor? No, they would expect you to show up. I remember, Naomi invited me to her home when the first batch of rehearsals started because we did 3 weeks of rehearsals before we started.
Oh, you kind of did like a play rehearsal, kind of?
Oh yes, the first thing she wanted to do was read the original play, so she brought her acting coach to her house, and it was me and her assistant, and we read the play from start to finish, and we talked about just the themes. We talked about relationship. We talked about just the differences between the screenplay and the play, and then we kind of went from there. And then after that, we had another rehearsal. But with them, it was like, Naomi was like, this is one of the hardest roles I've ever had. Octavia said, this is the most dialogue I've ever had.
Yeah.
Tim was just like, let's do it. He's like, enough whining, everyone. Yeah. Please, let's just do it. Yeah. But it was cool watching, like I said, it was like, scientists in the lab. Every day we were just trying to dissect something and unlock something, and everyone would come in with their glasses and their sweatpants to rehearsals with their big binders of notes. Wow. And just kind of going, well, what about this scene? And I'm having a trouble accessing this. And so it was like a workshop. We were all workshopping this material together. And not once did I guess, I just learned from watching the questions that they asked about the work. Yeah. That was the biggest thing. It's like how they talked about every scene.
Did you like working with like a long rehearsal process like that? Because I know that's unique. You don't get that on every film.
Oh, I wish I got it on every film. I think it made the world of a difference in terms of like the character that I had auditioned with versus the characters on the screen. Totally. You get a chance to get it in your body versus like, talking about it and suddenly trying to work it out on camera. And then trying to figure out continuity, and as you go through the role, you sometimes slip into it more, but the editing gets a little wonky. Yeah. With Luce, it was like I knew who I was playing from the beginning. I never had to question it, and also everyone else around me knew what the dynamics were because everyone else had started to form their character as well. Yeah. So it was the sense of relationship was stronger.
And I'm curious to ask you because I know you had some credits, but like, do you feel like that film was your Juilliard, so to speak?
Ooh. What does that mean? I've never
heard
that
like going to like.
Oh yes, going to an Ivy League.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I mean that film whipped me into shape. It was that, and plus I did a film right after It Comes a Night called Monster, and I got to work with Jeffrey and Jennifer Ely. And she's a breath of fresh air, and she just gave me her acting book. She had her little notes in there. And this is a woman who has like won 2 Tonys, and it was continuing. And she got nominated. I think she got nominated or won her 3rd the year after that. And so it was just talking to her and Jeffrey every day, and being number 1 on the call sheet again, and being there every day for like 3 months was like it's a workout. You become an athlete at a certain point. Yeah. And I think those 2 things, I guess, prepared me for everything else. But I feel like I need another.
Well, but before we jump into the Highnote, man, I just want to say, like, what you did with that character is some of the most exceptional, finest work I've seen. And the great thing about the business that we work in is like when you see great work, it just inspires you to want to do that. And what you did in that film, man, it was I would have given you every award if I had the capability. And I'm just curious to ask you, for the actors listening, from going from that kid in New Orleans to that kid in the Uber ride in LA to being there with Tim and Naomi, what would you say to the younger one? You know, like if now having all that experience for all those young actors that are wide-eyed in LA in that Uber right now, what any advice you would have?
Do everything. I think and be kind to yourself. I know a lot of people say that, but I think sometimes we get discouraged and then we do a lot of compare and contrast of what, I remember looking over to me and kind of seeing the other kids in New Orleans and in their careers and being envious of them.
Of course.
And thinking that I'm not going to be able to have that because I didn't have these A, B, and C moments. I didn't have my outlier moment, know. But you don't know when yours is coming. I think that's the thing. And so all you can do is just keep doing the work. I would watch every, round. I love the Hollywood Reporter roundtables. I love the Actors on Actors videos. I loved watching the DVD commentaries on movies. I loved, Academy conversations. I loved every acting book that I could find, get my hands on. I love taped auditions because, and sometimes, everyone feels differently about them. I do it a few takes and I get out of it. And sometimes I do that depending on what it is. But sometimes it's like, this is a good chance to exercise my work. Yeah. And so I would take 12 hours on an audition if I could, and it would just be hours and hours of just practicing and retaping. And like, that's your time. So I guess to my younger self is just to keep working hard and don't get discouraged. Like we have so much more time than we think. And I think this is the only business where if you keep going at it, eventually you're going to have your breakthrough moment. Yeah. But most people give up before they get there. They get their chance.
I totally get that. Yeah. So beautifully put, man. I really appreciate you sharing that. So we're here to talk about the Highnote, which seems like a very righteous progression of like your actual life. Now that you tell me, how did this come your way?
I got the script and I read it and I was like, this is a really cool project. I was like, I really wanted it. I was looking, my agents were like, you need to do a studio movie, Kelvin. And I was like, studio movies. It sounds like they're not going to have that much depth to them. And they're like, but you got to do it. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, okay, I'm learning. So send me everything you got. Most things weren't working out. It wasn't the right. It didn't make sense to me to be in it, And then this came along and I liked it, but I also was like, I'm not ready to do that. So I said no. And then it came back around and I was like, no. And then it came back around and I was like, fine, I'll meet with the director. And I met with the director, Nisha Ganatra, and she was incredible and she was so sweet. And we really saw eye to eye in terms of who did we want to create and the influences we wanted to use for this guy. And then after that, I taped. And then I did a chemistry read with Dakota, and then I didn't get the job. No way. I didn't get the job, and then a couple weeks went by. Maybe actually just a week went by. It was the day of the Tribeca screening of Luce.
No way! In that nice suit.
Yes, I was in that suit, and I remember it was right before we had to go to do the Q&A. I had just found out I got the job, and that changed. The guy that was going to do it isn't doing it anymore, and now I'm doing it, and I needed to leave tomorrow.
So that ended up being your summer, that movie.
That ended up being my summer. And so and that's how I got the job.
That's amazing, man. And then going from you being so incredibly gifted and doing all these amazing indie films. How did navigating a studio movie and playing the music and working with a movie star, let alone like two others. How was that world? I mean, you obviously have worked with movie stars before, but the way these kind of films, disseminate with an audience is very different than an indie.
Yes. It was a lot more money. Everything was bigger. It was very big. And I was like, whoa, this is what it looks like. Being on the lot. It was the first time I was on the Universal lot and having table read with all the executives there. And,
wow. How did that feel? Driving on the Universal lot?
It was intimidating. It was exciting because I felt like, whoa, like that's that kid in me that's like, oh my God, like this is Hollywood. And you get like really excited and jittery and just like you want to suck up all the air, but then you start to kind of go, now I actually have to do the job. I have to like make these people realize that like they didn't make a mistake, by actually putting me in this movie after they told me I couldn't do the movie. and so I was sick that day. I remember that too. And so I think the mechanics were just different, and but it worked at a higher level. There are a lot more cooks in the kitchen, but it was interesting seeing how Dakota and Tracy handled that. They truly are stars. Like I was like, I get what it means to be a proper star, and the power of what you have to say and your influence over a project, a script, or in the collaboration was key. How they handled themselves on set, how they interacted with the crew. It was very big, and so I think there are a lot more components, but with that comes a more resources.
Yeah.
So I had to, I worked with Ted, and they paid for Ted. I had a trainer, and I had
nice.
to train, I had guitar lessons, and I had an assistant. I had all these things going on, and sometimes it becomes a lot to grab to get back to the work. But all those things are here to kind of help you craft your performance more. And so to me, I kind of think there is no excuse if you don't find truth in those moments, unless you're really working against whatever train you're on. The question is, what's the intent with the movie? It's a studio movie about music industry, but it's a rom-com. So how deep is it really going to go? How deep are we really going to get into it? I can do that work, but Ted and I talked about it's still within this entertaining, fluffy atmosphere to be able to digest. So
and it's interesting how that kind of resonates on a meta level with the character and you both being in this place of like things going well and on the precipice of taking off, and then that happening. So I'm curious, because you had such a rich musical background, was it easy to pick back up, or was it like going back to the first day?
Ooh, it wasn't like going back to the first day, but it definitely felt like I hadn't worked out in a while. It felt like how we're gonna feel when we leave quarantine and we hit the gym. And that was the general. It was challenging mostly because I was blocking myself from all the things I learned. I felt like I was trying to remind myself every day. I was getting in my own way, We always get in our own way. We know what to do. We have the tools. We've done the work. And then sometimes we kind of tell ourselves that the work isn't going to get us through this one, which is just not real. Yeah. So, the producer, Rodney Jerkins, helped me get through that, and Tracy helped me get through that. And after that, we were just singing and playing guitar and doing the thing.
Oh man, we need films like that during this quarantine, and it was great to watch, man. And you were awesome, and got a killer voice, and I hope we get to see a record from you soon, maybe.
Maybe, man.
Well, final question here, man. I'm so curious because you're crushing it, and the thing I really love about you in this interview is you're very buoyed. You're grounded. A lot of people could go the other way. How have you maintained that through all this success?
I appreciate you saying that. I guess I don't really look at it like that. Yeah. My apartment's still a mess. Mine too. I still got I got two best friends, and I hang out with them most of the time, and we don't really go out much. We don't have friends that are, that are in the industry like that. We play video games and we make music and we watch TV and we go to the gym.
Amazing. Well, Kelvin Harrison, man, I know you got other places to go today, but I'm so grateful for you taking the time. And I would love to do this again on your next project, man. I'm so excited for all that's to come for you.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed talking to you, and I just can't wait to talk to Ted about, that we have to do this. That's so sick.
I'll message you on Instagram. Let's grab coffee in LA or New York when this is all over.
For sure, man. I can't wait.
All right. Got so much love, brother. Keep
doing it. You too, man. I appreciate you. You too.
Later.
Later.